You're a monster.
I'm your number one fan.
Now clear your minds. Know's what scares you. It has from the very beginning.
You know, it's Halloween. I guess everyone's entitled to one good scare, huh?
Just been informed that zombies have entered the building. They're at the door. They're coming in.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Midnight Monster Corner podcast. I'm your host, as always, Corey, and alongside me is my good pal, Daniel. What's going on, Daniel?
I was out. What's going on?
What's happening? And then alongside him is our good pal, Tony. What's going on, Tony?
Hey, not much, fellas. How y'all doing?
Doing great. So, the real question before we get into this episode is, do you guys want to relive this hour? Or do you want to check out?
It's like the longest hour of all time. That shit was insane.
I think the moral of the story in this movie was when a black man tells you not to go into a hotel room, don't.
I think the moral of the story is anytime you see a mini fridge in your hotel room, just beat the fuck out of it. That scene had me fucking cracking up laughing, dude. I was dying.
What I loved about that scene, and before we get into our housekeeping here, no pun intended on the hotel room, one of the things I loved about that scene was he comes out of it, he's like, I need a drink. He goes in there and beats the shit out of that refrigerator, and then as he's walking away, he's like, I just wanted a fucking drink. It's like, then turn around, you were just punching plenty of them. I mean, but with that, Daniel, you want to take over the housekeeping real quick?
Yeah, sure. Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to the Midnight Monster Corner podcast. We greatly appreciate that. Just a reminder, follow us on YouTube. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, tell your friends about us, and follow us wherever you listen to podcasts, whether it be Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, wherever. We're there. Check us out. Leave us a review, and leave us a 5-star review. That would be awesome. And again, tell your friends. And if you want to follow us, we have many outlets. We have a Facebook group. Go to facebook.com. Go to the search bar, type in the Midnight Monster Corner podcast. It is a closed group. Ask nicely, we'll let you in. We also have a Twitter, Monster_Corner. And then you can find us on TikTok at Midnight Monster 20. And yeah, that's where we're at. We're also on Letterboxd individually. Yeah. So we'll have to post links on our socials where you can find us there. So be sure to follow us there as well.
Definitely. All right. So thank you for that. And before we get into this full-on conversation, make sure if you haven't seen this film, this is the wrong turn, 1408, from 2007. And be sure to go check it out before you check out this review, because there's going to be plenty of spoilers, I'm sure, in this one.
Yeah.
It's going to be spoiler heavy.
And this is one of those movies too that are like, if you hear the spoilers, it might kill the movie for you. You know, like some movies you can hear spoilers and still enjoy the movie when you go back and watch it. This one here, being a Stephen King movie, you definitely want to go watch it first and then come back.
I would highly recommend that. Definitely. You might miss a couple things here and there if you don't check it out before listening to the review.
Yeah. Well, with that, let's jump into it. So, what you guys think of this thing?
Well, this was my second time watching it. Well, hell, it could have been my third. I haven't seen it in years. First time I'd seen this movie was in the theaters, and I remember loving it then, and revisiting it. I mean, it's obvious. Like I still absolutely love this movie, and I am excited to dive into this one. I really feel like, after watching this and sitting back for a minute and thinking, I don't think it's odd for me to say this is probably John Cusack's best role. He's got a lot of good ones, you know. I mean, Con Air, as silly as that movie was, he was good in that movie. Um, he's yeah. He's, you know, got a lot of good roles, but this one here, I think he really had a chance to, like, you know, just let go, because he really wasn't interacting a whole lot with people in the movie. It was more so just his depravity and him, you know. This movie kind of reminded me of like Edgar Allan Poe's The Pit and the Pendulum, you know, like you put a guy in a dark room and it just watches depravity. You know, you watch the darkness consume him, you know, as he just loses his mind. So, you know, it was exciting to revisit this one for sure.
Yeah, this definitely taps into the more psychological approach to a structured horror film, where it does really play into, you know, the things that you know you might have had experience in the past, and how they would come back and relive. You'd have to come back and relive those set things that have happened to you, where you can't, like, you can move forward, but you can never, like, completely forget what happens. And the set room actually plays into that in a big way in this film. So yeah, I'm really excited to kind of get into that, and you know, just hear what you guys are thinking about it and stuff like that. It's gonna be an interesting conversation.
Hmm. Yeah, same here for me. This was actually a second time watch, honestly, for me. I remember watching it years ago when it first came out, and I don't know. I guess me being kind of a younger audience, I was in my early 20s when I first saw this film, and honestly, when I first watched this film, I remember, um, I guess just watching it as a just as a horror film, and at the time I was just getting into horror movies. I think a little bit, you know, as far as collecting and stuff. Um, but when I watched it this time, I noticed a huge difference in this when I watched this one. I noticed right away um, certain subtle things that I didn't pick up on when I first watched it. So I was quite pleased with that, and it made me appreciate the film a lot more too. So this was a great watch for me, and I'm truly glad that we were able to do this review.
Yeah, I'm glad this one got picked, because, like you guys, it's a movie I've only seen twice. Um, Matter of fact, the last time I saw it was when it first came out. I think I was talking to you, Corey. I think I rented it at Movie Gallery back when it first came out, and checked it out. And my tastes have changed so much since then. You know, back then, you know, it was, like I said, early in my early 20s as well. I was all about, you know, slasher films and gore and all, and I still am to an extent. But, you know, with the older I get, the more I realize how much I appreciate a good psychological horror film, and
Mhm.
especially when it's done right. And I think this movie taps into a lot of those emotions, and I think it's done really well. So you know, because I barely remembered it back in, I guess it was '08, when I would have rented it, '08, '09, somewhere around there. And
Mhm.
you know, me watching as much as I've watched over the years, and I just, you know, I gained a new appreciation for it, because back then I you know, completely forgot about it, to be honest with you. And that's why I was so excited when it got picked. I was like, "Ooh, man, this is going to be like a first time watch for me, because it's been so long." And
Yeah.
I was pleasantly surprised. I really was. Especially from John Cusack. I mean, I think Daniel made a good point. I mean, the majority of this movie is him in this location, and, you know, you're going through this emotional roller coaster with him, and you know, he sells it well. I mean, he's really, he taps into those emotions that you don't really see from him that often.
Yeah.
At
Because
least
you
from what
remember
I
from 80s movies, you know, he was just a smooth talker, you know, a sarcastic guy, you know, and then he moved up to like playing cops in movies. And this movie, it's like, wow, John Cusack's losing his fucking mind. You know?
yeah, he's got some chops, and you know, to an extent, you know, you still have that in his character, especially in the beginning. You know, he's still kind of like you know, a snarky kind of, you know, kind of
Oh,
guy.
yeah.
But you know, I think it's more planned because of what happened, and, you know, what he's been through. So it kind of makes sense that his character would be like that in the beginning, and he has an arc. So It's really really a good solid character study almost with this guy.
Yeah.
And I come back to that because I know we haven't talked about that in a while, but character study, I mean, you get that with him because, like I said, you're on this emotional roller coaster with him. I mean, experiencing all the past life experience stuff he's dealt with, and just learning through the runtime exactly what it's done and how it's affected him to that point. So, structure of the movie is really well done.
Yeah.
I thought so.
I agree. Yeah, and to your point, I do agree 100%. John Cusack, he sold me on this. Like, and again, when I was younger, it didn't appeal to me, and nowadays, when I'm watching a film, I'm paying attention to a lot more than what I used to. And revisiting this film, I noticed like how well his acting actually was in this film.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he was going through an emotional roller coaster all over the place. One minute he's angry and upset and livid. The next minute he's calm, he's cool, he's very confident of himself, and then the next minute he's a broken man, shattered and crying.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, this room, dove deep into him.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it worked out too because there was a heavy emphasis on the 5 stages of death. You know, because I mean, this movie does, and like we said before, you know, there's gonna be a lot of spoilers. We're just gonna go ahead and jump right into spoiler territory here. He is dealing with the fact that, you know, him and his wife are split because he couldn't bear carrying the cross that, you know, of having to try to move on with his family, knowing that his daughter tragically died the way she did.
Mm-hmm.
And he wants to blame a god, but he doesn't believe in a god. So it's like, it's turmoiling him inside of him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like, and so when he gets in this room, it's showing him all kind of like just supernatural, paranormal stuff that's just fucking with him, you know?
Mm-hmm. And it's real personal to him, just like it is. I mean, you realize
it's demonic, you know?
Yeah. Well, you go through and realize and that's what I love about this film is when you get into the meat of it. This room has so much lore and so much history behind it. And I love when they delve into the history and the lore of this said room and what it's done to people over the years and how it's, you know, pushed them to the point of committing suicide and just really this room is racking up a body count in and of itself. And I mean, and I love the fact that it's not just a single entity or a single haunting. It is a just evil room. Essentially, it's not one entity. And, you know, you usually get a lot of those when you're talking about paranormal or
Right.
you know, those films. You get that, but in this one, it's a singular room that is just pure evil.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Well, like, and Samuel L. Jackson, he actually does say that.
Mm-hmm.
He actually says this room is fucking evil.
Yeah,
Those exact words.
That's the line of the movie. Is, you know, like how many places do we see like, just, you know, because Corey, me and you were big fans of like Ghost Adventures and stuff, and whether, you know, listeners out there think that stuff's like just fake or some of it's fake, some of it's real, you know, like there are some pretty wicked places out there, like just given their history, you know, like it's really haunting to think about. You know, it's like, hey, I'm standing in the same room where this guy just butchered his whole family with an axe. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, and so this room has that attached to it, you know, and it's just this evil, dark place, and it really plays well when, you know, like I mentioned, how this movie kind of goes through the 5 steps of death, you know, which is what denial, anger, depression, so on and so forth. And so, like, right off the bat with denial, the interesting thing was he's a writer who wrote paranormal stuff. He doesn't even really believe in ghosts, so he's like kind of going through the motions.
Well, he's always wanted to. He doesn't. He wants to be proven. You know, I guess, like, you know, he wants to prove to himself that this is real. So that's why he keeps going to haunted locations, keeps writing about them. He says in that book signing, you know, yes, I get creepy vibes, but you know, I can't definitively believe in this because I haven't seen a ghost. You know.
Yeah, and you know, I really think that ties in with his daughter too. He wants to believe that his daughter is in a better place. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Because there's that scene where he's sitting there talking to his daughter, and like she's like, you know, uh, where am I going? You know, will my friends be there? And he's like, he doesn't know how to explain to her because he's not a believer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just in that moment, you can just see that because he has to deal with that too. Not only losing his daughter, like we talked about, but also losing his faith. I mean, he becomes an atheist and he doesn't believe in anything. And
Yeah.
you know, it's moments like that where it's like that's when the light switches and it's like, oh wow, like it hits you there.
Hmm.
Because I thought
Hmm.
in the beginning, because it's been like I said years since I've seen this. You know, when you first meet his character and he's kind of like just going through the motions, he's not really like you don't really see kind of like a drive with him when it comes to this stuff. He's almost just like, oh, I've been there, seen it, this is and that, trying to debunk, these various hauntings and these various locations. And I wrote down, he seems disappointed and just like unhappy with what he's doing.
Yeah.
But when I found out later what had happened in his personal life, it's like, oh, okay, that pretty much retcons exactly what I wrote there, and now it all makes sense to me because I didn't think about that. So that was me kind of jumping the
Hmm.
gun and kind of thinking, oh man, he's just kind of like just a guy that's just like, hey, I'm a thrill seeking guy. I just want to, you know, just debunk all this stuff just to prove to people like an ego thing or something like that. But no, there's more to it than that.
Right.
One thing I liked leading up to it. So when he gets the, I think it was a postcard to come to the Dolphin Hotel, which I thought was funny. I was like, well, I was kind of confused by that because why he got a postcard to come check out this hotel when they don't want him to go in that room. I kind of got confused by that. I'm like, well, if you're gonna advertise him coming here and there's a haunted room or supposedly a haunted room or a room that's has a bad history, why the
Hmm.
hell did they send him a postcard to come there if they're so desperate and trying to not get him to stay in that room? I kind of got lost there, but either way, he's really determined to get there. He reads up on the history. He finds out it's a really dark history with this said room, and they're the guys there. They're like, hey, you can't book this room. And he's like, well, what about next Saturday? No, you can't book it. Well, what about a month from now? No, it's not. You just can't do it. And then they hang up on him. So I guess he goes through his editor and his lawyer to find a loophole into where they can say, hey, they can't legally bar you from renting this room, so you have all the free reign to do that. So he goes through a lot just to get actually to this room. And then we realize, him going to New York, because even his editor said, are you sure you want to do this? Because you know what's in New York. And he's like, well, I'm just going to be real quick. It's going to be a one and done quick job. And then I'm back here in California, because we later find out that his estranged wife is actually in New York. And that's what he's run from. So for him to come back to familiar territory is kind of like stepping
Yeah,
in.
I didn't think of that.
Yeah. And I thought, I was like, well, that's interesting. So Samuel L. Jackson's like not the curator. I was going to say curator, but the manager of this hotel, the Dolphin Hotel, which is a very interesting name for a hotel.
Hmm.
And he's basically telling him the lore, explaining a little bit more to him. And man, do those two guys play off well on each other or what, man? Like
They really do. I wish
they.
there was more.
Oh, I do too. That's the
Wish there
one
was
thing.
more lines.
I was like, man, I wish there was a little more interaction between those two characters because they really did play off well on each other. It was great to see that. I think those guys. I mean, the chops on Samuel L. Jackson is just like undeniable. But I think John Cusack kind of gave him a little run for his money, and just the back and forth was really, really fascinating to see. I was completely, almost like transfixed with their dialogue, their back and forth. It was
Yeah.
really. So I mean, when
Yeah.
he was telling the lore and everything like that, I was just like, I was zoned in, I was hooked in, I was ready to go.
Yeah. One thing I like that this movie did, you talk about like a character study.
Mhm.
This movie did it really well. because we find out his backstory on what he's been battling. He has become an alcoholic, which he even at one point blames alcohol. Thinks it's the alcohol making him hallucinate.
Yeah.
Uh, but overall, I really think it's cool how they kept it zoned into his character. They made it more about. They made it more personal.
Yeah, it was very.
Like it's something we see in a lot of haunt movies, like hell, The Changeling. We see it in Stir of Echoes, where like the said haunted location is haunted by another spirit, and it's kind of like this mystery to unravel why it's haunted, what happened, all this stuff, who did it. And like Stir of Echoes does that so well. But movies like this, or what this movie did rather, is they really kept it personal and made it about his character. Like the depravity of his mind, what he was going through. Like he just, it's like I said, it's really demonic because demons will play on like your psyche and
they'll try to keep you down,
to torment you. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
And this movie did it really well,
Mm-hmm.
keeping it personal like that. And so it became this just really crazy, wild character study, and I think it worked out really well.
So, yeah, too. And I love, going into the room when he first gets in there, man, he experiences shit before he even goes to the room. Like he's experiencing shit in the lobby, or not the lobby, but the floor that he's on. Like before he goes to the room, he's seeing crazy shit happening. I'm like, damn, it's not even before he enters the room where he's seeing all this crazy shit going on.
Well, and I've got a point there.
Oh, okay.
There's so here's the thing, okay? So this is something that I noticed going into this viewing. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
His 60 minutes doesn't actually start right away. So it's almost like he's had a couple chances to get out, before everything happens. The room almost tries to get him out of there before, the situation goes down, because
literally the clock starts ticking.
Yeah, because he at first, what's the first thing that he noticed was that the thermostat was kind of a little off, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, before that, the elevator door opened.
Yeah, and that was his first moment. That was the first one, because there was a couple, and that was the first one where it was like, you got to get out. Like, this is your chance. Mm-hmm. So that's the first one.
Yeah, but even back to, he's had multiple chances of backing out. With Samuel L. Jackson's character, profusely trying to get him not to stay in the room.
Oh yeah.
And then he's got the occurrences happening outside of the room. He goes in, he's dealing with the thermostat. It's starting to get a little hot in there, and just all the little stuff that's adding up. And one of the things that he did was he went to lean out the window, and this was after he messed up the paper towel or the toilet paper in the bathroom.
Yeah, it was funny.
And he messed up the bed. He leans out the window. The radio cuts on. The bed's made. There's chocolates on the bed now. And the toilet paper is back to where it was.
Mm.
Anything like that would normally send people out of that room fast. Like, oh, fuck this. I'm not doing this, And I guess that's the way that it starts. Like, it's almost like a game with this room.
It really is.
This room is going to test you at first, just a little bit, just enough to want you to leave.
Right.
But if you don't check out within a certain amount of time, it's only going to get worse. And at this point, now you're on a time scale.
Then you have to use the express checkout.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a good point, Corey. I like that, man. Because like you said, like at first, like it's really subtle things happening. Like it's not really in your face and really aggressive. It's just like, we'll put chocolates on the pillow and then fold the toilet paper in a weird way, and just do little things here and there. But if you don't react to that the way that the room wants you to react, it's going to get more and more aggressive going forward.
Oh, even down to when he got the maintenance guy up there. The whole situation was creepy. That guy's like, I'm not coming in this room.
I'm not fucking going in there.
It's like, I'll tell you how to fix that, but that's it.
That dude was calling so fast.
That was his second chance. That was his second chance.
That was his last out.
That was his last out. And after that, it was a done deal.
And I strongly believe that the room was honestly testing him at that point to see how far they could push him.
Yeah.
Mm.
I mean, because the room's big thing is to try to break you down psychologically into where you just kill yourself. Like that's its goal is to get you to off yourself in the room. So it's gonna slowly break you down psychologically, and if it's got to be methodical about it. But like to their point, no one lasts an hour in this room. Like that's the thing is there's the hour timeline of where people don't make it an hour. Like it just doesn't happen. So I mean, some people don't even make it like the first couple minutes. I mean, they're gone. You know, and I back to that story with the maid. When Samuel L. Jackson's telling him the story with the maid, which is really chilling. She's in the room and she's in the bathroom, and she was only in there for what, not long, maybe like what is it, 15 something minutes, something like that.
Yeah,
And
she got locked in there
yeah,
somehow.
in there, and he's like, "Oh, what did she die?" And he's like, "No, she went blind. She gouged her eyes out." And I was like, "Damn, like that's
Yeah.
brutal, dude. Like that's
It,
insane."
it
But
goes
yeah,
back to like the guy that slit his wrist and then tried sewing him back together.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. This is just like a dark, dark history with this room, man. And that's what gets me is just the lore, hearing the stories about what's going on or what's been going on in the room for
Mm.
over so long. I mean, it's really, really chilling, and it really plays into this movie or plays into the eerie atmospheric stuff going on in the room, where it breaks you down slowly but surely, but still in like a time frame. So it's like, man, it just knows how to work with time. It's this room is a great time management or time manager that's able to break you down to kill yourself in just about an hour, but still start off the way it did. So yeah, it's really fascinating, man. I never saw a movie with a structure kind of like that with a evil room, not just a haunted spirit or something, but it's the room itself that's trying to get you to pretty much kill yourself in it.
Oh, and you know what I kind of wonder is, and maybe we'll find out in the trivia because I'm really kind of curious. But when Stephen King um, wrote this, I'm wondering if like, it was taken from when he stayed at like the Stanley Hotel.
Hmm.
Because when he was writing The Shining, there,
Yeah.
he was saying that he was constantly, if I'm not mistaken, I heard rumor that he was constantly having paranormal stuff occur to him in his hotel room.
Hmm.
So I'm kind of wondering if there's like a small inspiration from there.
Yeah, it could have been. You can, yeah, I heard a interesting fan theory that that John Cusack's character possibly had The Shining. So I thought that was pretty interesting. It's like, kind of a
Huh.
take. Yeah, you just hear like I said, fan theories are always cool. I love listening to them.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're completely out there, and then sometimes they're like, oh, okay, it's
Yeah.
interesting. Food for
Somewhere in the
thought.
trivia, I was reading. I done lost it now. There's a lot of trivia in this movie, but
Mhm.
I wanted to say that this movie was just an inspiration to Stephen King because he was wanting to write a book on like um tips to be a writer or whatever, and I don't know, somehow that one thing led to another, and then he came up with the inspiration for this movie. So I could be wrong, but I remember seeing that in the trivia somewhere. I just got to dig it back up.
Okay. Oh yeah.
But well, one cool thing I've noticed from reading the trivia is how and it's little things that I didn't really pick up on before, but this movie's pretty meta when it comes to like it's pretty self-aware with Stephen King's writings. Like there's a point where because John Cusack's character is a writer, so of course he's you know has read a lot of books, and so one might tend to lean towards the idea that maybe he's a big Stephen King fan or he's read some Stephen King books because there's a scene where when he's actually on the ground flipping out and he starts quoting all this random stuff. It's actually quotes from Stephen King books.
Yeah.
I think one of them was a quote from the Dark Tower series and stuff like that. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Um, Also, there's things in the movie like classical music that is playing in the elevator was featured in the beginning of Father's Day, the first segment, which was a part of the anthology collection Creepshow, 1982. The screenplay for that film was written by Stephen King, and the segment after Father's Day featured as the lead none other than Stephen King himself. So there's just a lot of really cool.
Here's one as well where it's saying that while addressing his audience at the book signing, Mike says, "Stay scared." And that's a phrase that was traditionally used by director George A. Romero, which was a friend of Stephen King's.
Yeah.
And they both worked on Creepshow.
Nice. Here's one.
Matter of fact, I think when we met him, he actually said that too, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I vaguely remember that actually. Yeah.
Nice. So here it is. I found it. This movie makes many references and uses other tropes common to King's other works, including the spoken line, "This is 8, we have killed your friends. Every friend is dead now, or every friend is now dead," which I didn't understand in the movie, but that's a quote from the Dark Tower series. Sentimental objects of the deceased, such as Katie's dress and Mike's tape recorder reappearing in odd places, is reference to the things they left behind from King's anthology Just After Sunset. And then the name Grady being used was a reference to The Shining, which is kind of cool. Also, the usage of open graves to taunt the protagonist was from It, and the writer being trapped in a scary place was Misery.
For sure, yeah.
Pretty cool.
Wow.
So
this is cool stuff.
Yeah, I know. Like it's like his character being a writer, and then it's like you're using tropes from Stephen King books. This being a Stephen King book, I just thought it was pretty cool, and I'd be interested to because this is a film adaptation of a work, so it's going to be different, but there might be a lot of things that are the same. So I'm wondering how close to the book that I wonder if that's something that the director wanted to do. I mean, and if it is, that's really cool. Or if that was Stephen King's idea to put that stuff in the book, but we wouldn't know unless we read the book. So any listeners out there, if you've read the book or read this story, let us know in the comments on our Facebook group.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Please do.
So when he starts experiencing everything, what's your guys' first thoughts? Like as far as how subtle some of the stuff is, and it just starts getting darker and darker as you go down the tunnel.
Oh man, the one scene that gets me is when he's looking out the window and he sees somebody else across the street and in their apartment, and he's trying to get them to help and everything like that, and then all of a sudden this person, because the face is kind of in the shadows, you can't really see it, but the person it's like mimicking him and doing everything that he's doing. So I'm like, okay, well, and then he brings up the flashlight or the light, and you clearly see that that's him. But I love that whole scene was really chilling. I don't know, something about it was shot, the way it looked, it was just really, really off-putting.
It was really quiet,
Yeah.
I love that's actually my favorite scene of the movie. I remember that scene distinctly in the theaters too, because I remember saying to myself, that's him. That looks just like him. And then when he gets closer, you're like, oh, it is him. And he's wearing all black, which is interesting too.
Yeah.
Which, if you remember in the, and he's got that real just somber, narrow face, because when they're looking at each other, there's real John Cusack's character, Mike Insland, his character, he looks surprised, but the one looking back at him is just straight faced, kind of a mean mug.
Yeah.
Then if you notice later, and when he's sitting down at the table with he thinks he's sitting down at the table with his wife having dinner, he's wearing all black, just like the figure.
Oh.
And he's got that look when he sees the waitress walk by, that he kind of has a double take.
Mm-hmm.
And because he looks like the ghost, he's the apparition that he saw in the hotel that walked and jumped out the window. So he's kind of looking, he has that look. Also, this is kind of irrelevant to the movie, but I think it's interesting too that, according to paranormal lore, there's a such thing as a doppelganger,
Mm-hmm.
and they say that if you come across your doppelganger, then you'll die.
I've heard about that.
Supposedly, the doppelganger, lurks around looking for you to find you. If you come in contact with your doppelganger, you die, or whatever. But because there's been paranormal sightings where people swore to have seen a certain person in a location, and they're like, "No, I wasn't even there," And it's interesting that he was seeing himself like that because this movie's all about death and, facing death, looking death right in the face, So I thought that was kind of a cool little, maybe I'm looking too deep into it, but we do some deep cuts here on the Midnight Monster Corner.
Love doing those deep cuts, dude. The metaphors, all that shit. Like, I love it. It's so much fun to do, especially when a movie like this, man. There's so much going on. So much
Yeah.
going. I mean, I could watch this movie a couple times and still not pick up on everything that's going on, because, like I said, I missed out on before. The foreshadowing. There's a lot of foreshadowing in this movie too, to kind of tell you what's going to happen at the climax and what's going to happen to him in that room. And when I was talking to you guys about was the when he asked Samuel Jackson's character, is 1408 a smoking room? And Samuel Jackson's like, as a matter of fact, it is, leading up to the conclusion where we head in the climax and what happens. And then there's another one with the thermostat when he says, this room's on fire. I mean, when he's talking.
Oh, yeah.
He's talking to the receptionist. That's definitely foreshadowing what is to happen too. So there's a lot of that stuff I missed out on. I completely forgot about. And just watching, I try to pay a little bit more attention to the little things, the subtle things that were happening. And still, I mean, I missed out on a lot of stuff. It's just one of those movies where I'd have to watch a couple times to pick up every little thing that happens. But that just goes to show you, rewatchability is big. I mean, I might not revisit this movie right away, but I'm still going to check it out again. It's definitely going to be one I'll watch again for sure. But there's a lot of that going on.
Yeah. There's a lot of references to, not to try to cut you off, Corey, but just real quick. There's a lot of obscure references to number 13. I know we've talked about it. 1408, 8 plus 4 plus 1 is 13. And then there's the scene where he's like, he says, this is number 5, this is number 8. Both add up to 13. And then there's the postcard. So I don't know if that's like just something like they threw out there for you to like grab a hold of to see if you caught it or what, if it had any significance.
I also saw real quick, it was it's the street address he gives. It's 2254 Lexington Street in New York City. It adds up to 13. 2 plus 2 plus 5 plus 4 equals 13.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Interesting little. But and then like you said, they reference that there's no 13th floor, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how this would tie in. I did a quick search of 13. Numbers are big. A lot of like biblical historians and all study numbers. 13 in the Bible represents the Last Supper. The 13th. So some believe 13 to be unlucky because one of those 13 was Judas Iscariot, the betrayer of Jesus Christ. Could have some significance with his character being a man who kind of turned his back on like God as an unbeliever.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, that's interesting.
Might be a little too deep, but
when he opens up the Bible in the room, he opens it up to chapter 11, and on Samuel 2, which 11 and 2 equal 13. So there's another little reference to 13. There's so many of them. There's a ton of them in this film, and 13's always had that stigma of being an unlucky number. So
yeah,
it is. It's very interesting.
So, Tony, you mentioned Samuel Jackson's character a little while ago. And you mentioned about picking up on things. So this might just be a fan theory or whatever, but I kind of picked up on this. What if Samuel L. Jackson was behind this the entire time?
Oh, dude, I'm glad you brought that up. I'm so glad you brought that up because when he's trying to bribe Mike to essentially not go in the room, not stay in the room, and he gives him that whiskey, there's some people that theorize that he might have drugged the whiskey.
Well,
And gave
John, yeah, Mike even makes that
Yeah,
reference in the
exactly.
film.
Yeah, that's right. He does. He does exactly. Man, I forgot all about that. He actually does make that reference in the film. So, yeah, I heard that, and I was like, oh man, that's interesting. That's an interesting thought.
Speaking of interesting, so 2 Samuel 11:13, is that the verse he opened to?
He opened
Think it is.
to chapter 11, and it was Samuel 2.
Yeah, I believe it was 2 Samuel from what the trivia I was reading. Funny enough, Samuel Jackson.
Yeah.
Uriah said to David, the ark in Israel, and no, excuse me. At David's invitation, he ate and drank with him, and David made him drink. But in the evening, Uriah went out to sleep on his mat among his master's servants. He did not go home. Implying that he ate and drank with Samuel L. Jackson's character. Did not go home. Also, 1 Samuel 11:13 says, but Paul said, no one will be put to death today, for this day the Lord has rescued Israel. That's pretty cool. Like, he didn't die.
No, what did you guys? Oh, I meant to ask you guys. What did you guys think about his little tick with the cigarette? I thought that was pretty cool. Because every time he goes into a room, like he has a thing about setting the cigarette on the ashtray.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was really neat because I guess he was, a chronic chain smoker, from what I understand, and he kind of did that to. That was just his what am I thinking of here? His little trademark that he would do, or his little superstition.
He was trying to quit, wasn't he?
Yeah, superstitious. Because even toward the end, like when all that shit was going down, like he was actually smoking cigarettes. So I thought that was a neat little touch. I love that they included that.
Also, is it funny that a man who doesn't believe in ghosts is superstitious?
Yeah, I did find that.
Yeah. I think one of my funny little.
Just because he lost his way. I mean, at one point or another, he was a firm believer, and just after unfortunate circumstances happened with his family, he just kind of lost his way. So maybe there were some things that he still did kind of hold on to, and superstition might have been one of them. I don't know. It's interesting, and it goes to, like we were talking about, this is such an interesting character study of this man and his past. He even had like a little bit of a strained relationship with his father, and that came into play too in the movie as well.
Oh yeah.
So there's just so much, and I look at this movie as the structure wise is a man's redemption. This was almost his redemption, in his life, and just a way to redeem himself in the eyes of his estranged wife, his family, and himself. I mean, I looked at it a lot in that way, especially when the climax happens, and we really, which is another fascinating thing. So apparently, there's two different endings shot for this film, and from what I understand, I mean, I think we all watched the theatrical cut because it's on the DVD. We missed out on the director's cut ending. So, but from many people that enjoy this movie say that the theatrical cut is the way to go. It's the better ending. And researching it a little bit more, I come to the conclusion like, it's a little bit more of an upbeat ending that we got. The director's cut ending is really, really downbeat, and basically it changes everything that happens. So I actually didn't even realize that there was two different endings.
Me neither.
I did not know that. The theatrical cut that we got, he actually is he survives, and we see what happens at the end where he survived, and everything was all good. But in the director's cut, he ends up dying in the fire. and he then at the very end, the last shot, he hears his daughter's voice, and he's in the room. The room is still completely destroyed by the fire, and he's an apparition, and he goes to his daughter's voice, and then that's just not the ending we got. So
That's
thought
still
that-
kind of an upbeat ending because he's with his daughter.
right. They say it's more of a dour ending, but because of the fact that he passed away. But I look at it like, well, he found closure either way. With both endings, at least he found closure.
Yeah.
Able to redeem himself.
Because I will say this now, the ending. So I have an appreciation for this film, and we'll get into ratings later on. But with that being said, the ending, I found myself thinking, like this room, how did it just let him go at the end? Like I found myself wondering that, like the only way out of this room is to either relive this hour until you're done,
Until you
or
kill yourself.
off
essentially.
yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how can this room, as evil as it is, definitively let him go?
Yeah.
You
It's
know?
kinda it's
And
kinda
and towards the ending, I was actually waiting on like him sitting there writing that book, and the next thing you know, like he's back in that fucking room again, or something.
Yeah.
Well,
That's what I was expecting, because it just didn't make sense to me that the room would just let him go like that.
well, that's what got me. This movie fake, like it gave me a fake ending, and I was so bummed out because I thought this movie was going to end a certain way, and I was like, please don't end this film that way. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't. And then it was no, they didn't end it that way. They kept it going, and then we got the ending we got. So I was really,
Yeah.
really bummed out that they were going in that direction, and I'm so glad that they didn't end up in that direction and they didn't go for it.
Mhm.
Which I think you guys know what I'm talking about. But
Yeah.
the way it ended, I was satisfied, but I thought it was like, dude, please don't tell me they're gonna do that. Please don't tell me you're gonna do that.
Yeah,
But
I was really pleased with the ending. Which, if you really think about it, all this could have been avoided had the man done an EVP on any of his investigations.
Well, he even said that, hey, he's got all the necessary equipment to do all the investigating he needs to do. Like he's got all the up to date equipment and everything. Like he's got it.
Apparently not.
I mean,
Which, when he was using a black light in that room, when he first showed up in there, when he was first investigating the room, and you just seen like the amount of fucking blood that was everywhere in this room, when
That
you
was-
got the fuck out, like it's just like, okay, well, I'm not sleeping in that bed. There was a pool of blood there.
the whole bed was covered in blood.
Yeah, it was.
Nothing.
That spoiler, that was cum.
Oh, okay.
That's it. Okay. Well, that's
Is that where they shot the parody?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's just cum everywhere, even the door.
Oh, good.
That was a lot.
Somebody came on the thermostat.
Overall, though, and just the experience of this film, I had a great time, even with the ending. Like I said, I found myself kind of wondering, but with that being said, I enjoyed the ending thoroughly. Like it was fun, and then as he was playing that tape recorder, that was really cool, because there was kind of validation backing up everything that occurred to him in this room.
It's exactly what it was. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's no doubt. There's no doubt now.
Yeah.
If anyone wants to ask, Plus, if he shows it to anybody and they don't believe him, then they don't have to believe him. He believes now.
Yeah, and obviously his wife does now too.
Yeah, for sure.
'Cause she heard it and it tripped her out.
She was
I really like that ending too, because he was just kind of looking at her like, now you believe me in a sense,
Yeah, you said I was crazy. You didn't believe me. You said I was under too much stress.
I really love the fact that the room had him kind of in an alternate universe in a sense as well.
It kind of did, yeah.
Because even at one point, like when he was able to video chat with his wife on the laptop, he which he called it, I think he called it a cordless or something, or a wireless. He was like, I'm gonna call her on the wireless or something so stupid. But I picked up on that and I was like, that's terrible. But
Well, I picked up on that when he was trying to escape out of the window, and it just kept going. It just kept going. I was like, well, there's obviously no escape. He's not going to get out through the ledge. And
Yeah.
that's not happening.
yeah.
So
Well,
it
then
was,
when he tells her to send the cops, and she does, and she's like contacts him back, and she's like, "They're in the room. You're not there. Where are you?" You know, that
absolutely.
that was mind blowing right there. I was like, "Wow, that's really cool how they did that."
Exactly. Hey, Corey, I know we talked earlier about, like, you were asking me about, like favorite scene or what scene kind of stood out for me. What about you guys? What scene really like stood out for you? And I think Daniel kind of said the one I was talking about.
Yeah, that's my favorite scene in the whole movie, to be
That,
honest. I mean, other than that, I really like when he was in the attic, or not the attic, the ventilation,
that was cool.
and he was getting chased by that ghoul, and then he falls back through the ceiling, and he's back in the room, and he makes the comment, and he's like, "Good to be back."
I honestly, probably my favorite scene is the almost to the climax of the film where the 60 minutes is up, the room is back to normal, the phone's ringing, he answers it, and she's like, would you like to check out now? And she's like, or you could relive this 60 minutes all over again. And he turns and there's a noose, and then as he walks into another room, there's a noose, and he's just reminded that there's nooses everywhere, that he could just off himself at any point.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was a really cool scene.
Yeah, I did too. Yeah, that was a good scene too, man. There's two that stand out for me. And that of course is the doppelganger scene. I like that one. But the scene that gets me, that's really like really deep, is the scene where, he sees his daughter, and like she's like, he hugs her and he's holding on to her, and he's talking to her, and she's like, do you love me? And he's like, yes, of course I do. And then like she kind of goes limp and lifeless in his arms, and then she kind of like crumbles and falls apart, and he's like breaking down. He's like, not again. He's like, I can't do this again. And I was like, oh man, that's so hard. That's rough, dude. That's so
Yeah. Bit of duality there too, because he means he can't do the room again.
Yeah.
And he also can't face his death of his daughter again.
Right. He just couldn't do it. He couldn't do both again. Like that was John Cusack killed it in that scene too, man. He was so emotional, and you really believed it. Like you felt it.
He's been acting a long time.
Yeah.
He's a good actor.
I just like that they gave him the free reign to go, full Cusack and kind of like just take you on a whole range of emotion. Like he sold it well, man. That's another thing. I feel like I say, oh man, this guy's performance is great. This guy's performance is great. But really, I mean, when we've been covering these films, I mean, we've been getting some great performances. That's just another one to add to the list. I mean, it was killer. He did a fantastic job.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Going back though, when we were discussing the cover art of the film and how Samuel L. Jackson really just didn't have a whole lot, in the movie and everything, I'm kind of wondering, and this kind of goes back to my theory on, was Samuel L. Jackson behind it the entire time? And the reason why I say that is because, for one, he got a mysterious postcard in the mail.
Yeah.
From who? It didn't explain who. So instantly your mind starts wondering, well, where did that come from? Who's to sit there and say that Samuel L. Jackson, because Samuel L. Jackson made a reference in the film that he's read all his books and stuff like that. He's he loves his work, as an author. So kind of makes me wonder, did he set this up the entire time?
Awesome.
And then even on the cover, you see John Cusack's face. On the other side of the key, you see Samuel L. Jackson's face.
Yeah, it's like the duality.
He looks very sadistic,
Well,
and then,
I'm sorry.
well,
continue.
and then towards the end, well, you see Samuel L. Jackson pop up in one of Tony's favorite moments of the film where he's beating the shit out of the refrigerator.
That's another scene.
You got a little tiny Samuel L. Jackson in the refrigerator.
I love
it
that
wasn't a
scene.
whirlpool.
Completely different set of circumstances, but that is another one of my favorite scenes in the whole movie.
Yes. And then of course you see Samuel L. Jackson towards the end where he's sitting back and he's got, like a bourbon or something, and he's drinking and he's smoking a cigar and he's like, "Well done, Mr. Inslip. Well done." And again, it comes down to, in my theory of, is this room honestly a game? Is it playing a game of, can you beat me, in a sense, And is Samuel L. Jackson's character the one driving this?
Yeah. It's almost like dude, it reminds me of Unbreakable, like Mr. Glass, like him doing that.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of the same thing.
That's Samuel Jackson.
Samuel Jackson. Sneaky bastard.
He's a shiesty one.
Yeah, he is.
But to your point of him, Mr. Olin, I think his name was, referencing his work. If you remember back at the book signing when the girl brought him the book, The Long Journey Home, or the Long Road Home, he's like, "Oh my gosh, where'd you find this?" Because it was like, super old, unheard of. It was like probably one of his first, if not his first book. He's like, "How much was it going for?" She's like, "Not much." And he's like, "Yeah, don't surprise me. I don't think many people were looking for this book or didn't even know about it." And then Samuel Jackson's character makes a reference to that book. And he kind of does it he does it in kind of a sly way where like he pretends like he forgot the name of the book, but he knows the name of the book. And so to go back to your point, Samuel Jackson's character knows
more than he lets
him
off.
well. So it kind of makes you wonder, is Samuel Jackson even the manager of this hotel?
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking no. I'm thinking maybe he was symbolically, maybe he could have been playing the devil, or he could have been playing. Whatever was running this room. Yeah, the master of this room to like lure him in. Maybe he was the one that sent that postcard because he knew, like the same way they say God knows our heart, the devil knows our heart, and he's going to play on that. So he knew that like he couldn't turn this down because he was such an unbeliever that he was going to get him in there. You know what I mean? Either way.
Yeah. Yeah.
It just didn't dawn on me yet, but it kind of makes sense in a lot of ways too. That would be the play, like because the devil's going to tempt you. So that's the way to do it. You play on somebody's baggage of what they got going on in their life. That's the way to get him hooked and to get him there. Because like I said to that point I was bringing up, I don't know who sent that card at the beginning, but if they're so against him actually going in the room in the first place, why would you send him the card? But hearing that, I'm like, okay, well now I'm looking at it differently. Now it could be like a ruse to kind of get him there. So that's interesting.
Right.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, dude, I forgot to mention too, but it's on a lighter note. When he first gets in the room, what's the first thing he does, really? He goes to the TV and looks up porn. I was like, really?
See, the devil be tempting.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, like, damn, that's so cliche.
Well, I mean, it was it almost kind of plays a part, what kind of evil do you seek, what kind of temptations are out there, all the way down to really the chocolate on the pillow. What temptations are there?
That's right. I got high blood sugar. I can't fuck with that. So, I like how this movie's really left up to interpretation. As some, because I like a lot of the deep cuts we're going into. It's not necessarily, the law. Like it's not set in stone. That's what it is. But like, just through interpretation and watching the movie, it's really cool. And there's another movie that has a very similar scene that really, and I'll get into that on our roulette episode. But there's a character that plays like a devil type character, where like he seems like he's the one in on it the whole time, pulling the strings. But it's in this movie called Ghost Stories that I watched a couple weeks ago. So we'll get into that. But I love that, how you have a character the character that's like so mysterious, like Samuel L. Jackson's character, and you're not really quite sure their role. But then if you really think about it, it's like, well, he had a bigger role than he was letting on,
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. You know what else I found myself kind of wondering while watching this, especially towards the end. I kind of was wondering, where did this room come from? Like, why is it this way? I really wanted to know more of the history of the room. Not so much like, because we find out the history of the room, but I like, why is it this way? Why is this so-called the evil room? Well, I was really kind of, honestly, I was kind of hoping for, maybe like a prequel to it or something. I wish there was something out there
I mean, cool.
that could explain a little bit. I mean,
Yeah.
you get some explanation, but it's just not. I want to know where the evil comes from in this room.
Yeah, I know you never had a chance to watch American Horror Story, but there was a season called The Hotel, where it's about a haunted hotel. It was actually pretty cool. Probably one of my favorite seasons, next to like the first two seasons were great. Murder House and The Asylum.
I love The Asylum. I did watch that one.
Yeah, it was good. And then Hotel was pretty cool. 1984 had so much potential, but it had a strong start. Like it had the music, the 80s music, the 80s horror movie tropes, 80s slasher tropes. And then it like took this weird paranormal supernatural turn towards the end that was just like, what? But yeah, not trying to get off track, but like in the hotel, the original person who built the hotel, you find out, was like a serial killer, and he would kill his victims, and he was burying them in the walls as he was building the hotel. So then, yeah. So the hotel was just like evil as hell, and all the spirits of these people were haunting the hotel. So that was pretty cool.
I need to watch those.
Another thing that I can appreciate this film did, especially for the time period it came out, they did not go with the cheap jump scares in this. There wasn't a lot of that going on, which I can appreciate. I'm glad that they didn't go there, because it was really, at that time especially, really cliche for them to just put these cheap jump scares in the movie.
Oh yeah, shut the old. I'm gonna shut this bathroom cabinet door, and there's gonna be a ghost behind me in the mirror trick.
Like shit like
When
that.
they-
I'm so glad they didn't get tempted to do shit like that, because they could have easily put that shit in this movie, and
when
that would have.
When they did do it, it was very well done. Like the scene where he saw the doppelganger, and he lifted the light, and the dude was behind him. Yeah, that was cool.
Shit like that was earned. You felt like that earned a reaction from the audience. Like building up like that, not just a cheap jump scare. I just want to say that I appreciate the hell out of that, especially for the time it came out, because a lot of movies at that time were playing off that gimmick and really just putting that in the films, and it was just like, man, I'm glad they took out like the higher road and didn't do that.
Yeah.
So thank you 1408, from the bottom of my heart, for not putting cheap jump scares in your movie. Thank you, director.
Yeah.
One thing I found myself kind of wanting a little bit more too was the apparitions. I was kind of hoping for a little bit better, I guess you would say, ghosts.
Corey.
I mean, but it plays off as they're not so much apparitions as they are. I don't know. What would you say? Kind of like just beings that are there. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. But I thought to
Visions,
myself
maybe?
that it was. Huh?
Visions, maybe.
Yeah, but at that same note, like I felt that they were kind of cool because it was almost playing off as if it was like a 8 millimeter like film or something, you
Yeah,
know?
or like an antiquated, like 1950s film kind of deal.
Yeah,
So
It looks
that's
static.
cool, but I'm with you though.
I
Yeah,
am too.
yeah.
staticky.
Yeah, I put that down in my notes. I was like, I don't really like the effects of the apparitions. Kind of hokey,
Yeah.
but
I
The
mean,
one in
honestly, I was expecting like a librarian to turn around and tell him to shush.
the the um the ghoul in the ventilation shaft was cool.
yeah, dude, it was all
He was
crusty
he
and
was neat.
dusty.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know who he reminded me of? You remember his boss, or not his boss, but on the film Scrooged, that
Dude.
guy's boss
Yes.
with the golf ball, like
Oh
that.
yeah.
That made me think of that film so much right there. Like when you first see him with the glasses and everything, I was just like, oh my god. I was waiting for Bill Murray to kind of pop up.
Heck yeah.
Another Bill Murray reference.
Yeah, there you go.
Gotta get him in there.
But yeah, overall, this was a fun ride, and like I said, it earned so much more of an appreciation this viewing go round because, like I said, I was able to kind of try and pinpoint how Samuel L. Jackson's character was leading this thing and stuff like that. So it really had my mind going in while watching this film and stuff. And I like that in a film. I like when a film makes me start to think, well, how does this character fit in this story? How does this story continue on, or how is it going to end? I really enjoy when a film does that. So this was pretty powerful, and I enjoyed watching it.
Yeah.
All right. How about all right, let's move to some ratings.
Yeah.
Let's give this movie a rating. Tony, what are you giving this movie, man?
Oh man, I'll tell you what. This was a fun watch. I'm glad this one got picked. Because honestly, when Corey picked 1408, I was like, oh hell yeah, man, that's good. I'm gonna
Yeah.
go back and revisit this film because honestly, I don't remember a thing about it. Um, and then I watched it and I was completely sucked into the story. Like we said, it's a character study. I feel like it's a character study, and it's a psychological horror film more than anything else. And with me, getting older, I really appreciate a good psychological horror film. So this one worked for me. It did it for me. I gave it a solid 4 out of 5 on Letterboxd. So I highly recommend it, though. I think people, if they haven't checked this out, they need to check it out, especially if they enjoy that more psychological edge to a horror film. They're gonna dig this one.
Heck yeah. So I gave it I'm right there with you. I gave it a 4 out of 5 on Letterboxd. I love this movie when I went and saw it in theaters. Even missing all the cool Easter egg stuff. I love it after reading about it, doing some research, and discussing it. I love it even more.
Yeah.
So I cannot give it a stronger 4 out of 5.
Yep.
Definitely worth watching. And the only reason I would have given it higher, the only reason is there wasn't enough Samuel Jackson in the movie.
That
And I know that doesn't ruin the movie, but they had such good chemistry, and he was such a cool character. I wanted to see more.
I agree. I would love to see more of those two characters
So
play off
and
each other.
and better
Yeah,
apparitions.
Yeah, exactly. The apparition's kind of weak. I was still confused but writing that down, the whole postcard thing kind of confused me. That kind of went into my rating too. I was like, well, that doesn't make any sense. But when you told me that, or when we kind of talked about it, I kind of like, okay, well, I can kind of see that now. So it swayed me a little bit in a different direction, but just a couple little things here and there. Just kind of, but overall, the movie's solid as hell. Enjoy the hell out of it.
Right on. Well, for me, like I said, just overall, I love a good film that makes me think and almost kind of play out a theory in my head and stuff. And going into this review and everything, I definitely wanted to talk about that. But But with that being said, yeah, I gave it a 5. Honestly,
Nice.
honestly, the only thing that I could depict that I didn't like about the film was the way the apparitions were portrayed in the film.
Mhm.
But that was it. I mean, everything else was awesome in my opinion.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, 5 stars from me.
Nice. Yeah.
All
So
right.
that's a high recommendation on all three of us. So
Awesome.
listeners out there, if you're tuning in, check this one out if you haven't already.
Definitely. And thank you to whoever suggested this one. Was it Josh?
I believe it was Kyle
Kyle.
Wessinger. Mhm.
Okay. Awesome. Well, appreciate it, Kyle, for picking this one. What
Yes,
we're going to do, I believe what we're going to do moving forward is we're going to have the first two weeks of the month is going to be our choice movies. Third week will be listener's choice, and we'll do a drawing at the end of the second week. And there will be prizes involved too. So we'll be doing more giveaways, and also be sure to let your friends know too that just by listening to the show, supporting us, following us, and participating in our online the Facebook groups and the Facebook group and the posts, breathe. They can win prizes and even have a chance to have one of their movies picked for review. I'd like to see what you guys pick, because I'm always interested to hear about movies that we might not necessarily have seen, or maybe we've seen them but we forgot about them.
yeah.
I definitely, I always, when I see this movie out and about, I always ask people, "Hey, have you seen this? It's really good." So I definitely didn't forget about this one. This was a great one. I'm glad it got picked. Really glad Sixth Sense didn't. No offense. That is a one-time watch. Good movie. One-time watch.
In a minute. But yeah, and I also want to thank everybody for their participation. We got a good flow of participation in the poll on our next episode of what we should watch. So thank you guys so much for putting your ideas out there and stuff like that. We really, truly, really appreciate it. It was awesome seeing that outpour of support and stuff like that. So thank you guys.
Definitely.
Awesome.
Yeah, we definitely appreciated it. Oh, Daniel, before you land it, did you want to discuss the roulette episode as well?
Oh yeah. So the fourth month will be our roulette episode, which is basically instead of going into like one long deep dive of one movie that we watched, we all pick our own movies, and we can either tell each other about the movie we watched, or we can make it a surprise. But we basically just bring a couple of movies to the table. Now, with this episode, you can still participate and give us suggestions. That would actually be very appreciative of me, because the hardest part about the roulette episode is knowing what you want to bring to the table.
Yeah,
because you don't want to bring 20 movies to the table, but you don't want to bring just one.
Oh man, and the pressure's on too, man. You got to pick a really, got to get a good pick in there. So the pressure's on.
Absolutely. I've actually already watched a few movies. I just didn't want to choose which ones I want to bring. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward to talking about Ghost Stories. I thought it was a pretty cool movie.
Well,
So
if that's the case, and if we get some, participation in from the listeners and everything like that, I think I might have a film picked out for mine. If we're doing paranormal, so I think I might have a film picked out for mine. I don't know if you guys have been thinking about it, but I've been thinking about it hard, man. I want to, pick something. I really wanted to pick something I haven't seen before, that I'm just going into really, really blind. And I think I found.
Yeah. So I really want to do The Dark and the Wicked.
Oh, such a good movie. Sorry, I don't want to jump the gun, but damn, holy shit, that's a good flick. Excellent. If you go with that one, dude, you're not going to be disappointed. That's an excellent pick.
I've heard really good things. I haven't seen it.
Oh, man. You got to check it out, dude.
I'm gonna have to.
Yeah, high recommendation on that one.
So,
Well.
I guess we'll land this plane.
Let's do it.
So, ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Midnight Monster Corner podcast. We greatly appreciate you listening and bearing with us through our review of 1408. By now, if you haven't seen the movie, go watch it. You've already spoiled enough. But yeah, thanks again for listening and watching on YouTube. Remember, like, share, subscribe, tell your friends about us, leave us a 5-star review. Check us out on anywhere you can listen to podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, etc. We would greatly appreciate that as well. And of course, follow us on Twitter at Monster_Corner. Follow us on TikTok at Midnight Monster 20. And if you want to email the show, which is not something we really promote much, but if you want to email the show, remain anonymous, send questions, you can do that as well at midnightmonstercorner@gmail.com. And that would be awesome. So with that being said, if there's nothing else to add, gentlemen, we bid you adieu. And we'll see you next week.
See you next week. Later, guys.
Later.